So far in this section on metaprogramming, we've discussed an introduction to it, how we can use it for our own classes, and then also how we can open up built-in core Ruby classes. Now I want to go into some more advanced ways that other people are using this so you can see some of the possibilities. So I have a Rails application open here. I'm not sure if anyone does metaprogramming better than Rails, so I thought it'd be a great example to show you kind of how you can take your metaprogramming tools and use them from here. So I've opened up the Rails console, which is a spot where you can run things like database queries and things like that. It's kind of like a IRB on steroids, essentially. And so if we open up this application and look at the database file, we can see right here that we have customers and they have name attributes, email, things like that. And this is a pretty big application, so for the sake of this, we're going to ignore all the other tables. I just want to show you how metaprogramming can be used, or how it's used by Rails. So we have customers right here, and if I did something like customer.last, it'll bring in the last customer. It has an ID, a name, email address, things like that. Now, what happens if I want to do something like search just by name? So what happens if I want to find Oxy and I don't know any of the other details? I can actually do customer find underscore by underscore name and then pass in Oxy. And you can see it brings up this same record, which is pretty cool. Now you may think, oh, find by name, that is obviously a Ruby method, or it's a method that Rails created. But you may be really interested to find out that find by is actually the only method that Rails created. And they use metaprogramming to give the flexibility to pass in arguments. So in this case, name, even though it looks like it's part of the method, is actually just an argument. So the way it goes is find by is the method. I'm going to show you in the Rails core library right here. This is the actual code that makes up Rails, and here is the find by method, and you can see it's just a regular method, and it takes in arguments and passes them to a where clause. So it takes in an optional number of arguments, and it gives some examples of how it can be used up here. And as you can see, if you do find by name, this is just referencing a argument. So let's do this again just to show you that name, just to prove that name isn't built in. So I'm going to do customer find by email, and then I'm going to pass in that email address, and you can see it brings up the exact same record because this is right here. Now, to prove to you that find by name is not a method built into Ruby and it is metaprogramming, let's look over here. We have a location model, and you can see there's no name attribute in here. So if I want to do location find by name and pass in, let's say, Midland, you can see it gives a method error. It says no method error, undefined method find by name for this class. So Rails is intelligent enough to know and to look at the arguments being passed in, and it says, okay, name is an attribute inside a customer, so we're going to look for that. Location does not have a name attribute, so that's not going to work. Now with this, we could do locations, and I'll need to find a one they actually have. So location, okay, they do have a Midland, Odessa one. So let's do location, find by city, and then we can just pass in Midland, Odessa, and there you go, and it works. So you can see that the way the Rails core team developed this makes it so it's really flexible, and it gives you the ability to dynamically create methods on the fly. And that's what really good metaprogramming does. I've seen developers who wanted to get very fancy with it, and they created metaprogramming modules that are incredibly complex, and they may do what they're supposed to, but they're very difficult to read. And to me, that really kind of kills the whole concept of what you're supposed to do as a developer. You're supposed to be able to write code that's very readable by yourself, but also by other developers. If you're not doing that, then you're probably overcomplicating things, and it's going to cause problems possibly right now, but definitely down the road, because you're going to have created this code that's nearly impossible to debug and to go through. So you can see right here, though, this is very elegant code. You can also see, if you look through the core library, that it's put together very succinctly. It doesn't have a lot of wasted excess things that it doesn't need, but it does what metaprogramming, in my mind, should be the goal, which is to give you flexibility and to give customization to your application that doesn't come right out of the box in Rails or in whatever program you're using.